Hi, everyone. I'm Osiris Steffen.
And I'm Nina Simmons. And we're the hosts of the Love and Cannabis Podcast. We started our podcast over a year ago to share our story of how we are helping our son manage the severe epilepsy with CBD oil. Aiden was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was just 2 years old. And each week we talk with medical professionals, parents, business owners, and other cannabis advocates. All of our guests are so inspiring, but this coming week, on Friday, we have a very unique guest.
That's right, Nina. On Friday, October 23rd, we sit down with Bruce Linton, the former CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation and one of the true cannabis titans. Bruce has done so much to improve the lives of so many people, and we are honored that he took time out to talk about the future of cannabis with our listeners.
We hope that everyone will tune in on October 23rd to hear a special interview with Bruce Linton on the
Love and Cannabis Podcast.
Welcome to today's Hemp Barons podcast, everyone. I'm host Joy Beckerman, and I hope everyone's getting ready to get out the vote. It's such an important election. And speaking of engaging in the process, what a guest we have today. Jonathan Miller, one of my favorite hemp heroes, member in charge of Frost Brown Todd, a large law firm in Lexington, Kentucky, with offices all over the country, but also general counsel to the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, where I serve as the vice president of federal lobbying and chair of the Federal Lobbying Committee. We're doing some tremendous work. And Jonathan Miller, who really was the brainchild of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, is doing just incredible leadership in a number of areas that are affecting the hemp industry. Large effects on the hemp extract industry, and then beyond that in the hemp oil seed and fiber industries. Jonathan is a fascinating human being. The more time I spend with him, the more I learn, and his depth just continues to amaze me. He is a delight of a human being, of a humanitarian, and a powerhouse of an advocate and an attorney. So he graduated from Harvard College and Harvard Law School. So we're very blessed to have his tremendous brains. He actually began his career in politics in college by serving as the national director of Students for Gore in 1988, when then Senator Al Gore was running for president. And he later worked for Al Gore when he was vice president in the Clinton administration. And I even recently saw a wonderful video, sort of a throwback video of Jonathan introducing Al Gore at the Democratic National Convention. He also served as a politician in Kentucky. He was the secretary for the Kentucky Finance and Administration Cabinet from 2007 to 2011. And prior to that appointment, he had been the Kentucky State Treasurer from 1999 to 2007. And he also ran for governor of Kentucky. You know, other things that he's done, again, his depth being just so tremendous. He's authored the book, The Compassionate Community, which examines religious values and how they relate to politics. President Al Gore wrote that forward. And he's authored other books. And his wife, Lisa, is just a total delight, an incredible woman, a spiritual leader, a wellness leader who is also an author. So hemp is very, very blessed to have Jonathan Miller be brought into our ranks. He sort of entered around 2014. And while it's taken so many heroes and heroines to get hemp to its seat at the table, which we finally got in 2014 through the 2014 Farm Bill, and now as an agricultural commodity in the 2018 Farm Bill, now that we've got that seat on the table, we need some real firepower. We need some real credentials, very strong credentials, and we certainly have that in Jonathan Miller and the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. So without further ado, I'd like to deliver to you that great and informative Please Stay on Your Toes interview with Jonathan. And once again, encourage you to make sure you get out the vote. If you can vote in person safely, some say that'll be the safest way to do it. Drop your ballot in the ballot box. And others say get your vote in your ballot in the mail and do it very, very early, given all of the challenges, engineered or otherwise, that we're hearing about with the post office. So once again, I give you Jonathan Miller, and I hope you have a safe and healthy week. Engage. Well, welcome back to Hemp Barons, Jonathan Miller. It's always wonderful to have you as a guest.
Great to be with you as always, Joy.
Boy, do we have some things to discuss. The roundtable, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, is busier than ever in leading the way to a path forward to common sense law and policy in hemp. And let's just get right into it here. On September 4th, Congressman Kurt Schrader and Morgan Griffith filed H.R. 8179, the Hemp and Hemp-Derived CBD Consumer Protection and Market Stabilization Act of 2020, which the U.S. Hemp Roundtable took a leading role in drafting with a large coalition. Could you tell us a little bit about H.R. 8179, Jonathan?
Sure. One of the real challenges for the hemp industry and hemp farmers right now is the dramatic decline in the price of hemp biomass and bankruptcies that have occurred, contracts that have been broken. So much of this is related to the fact that the FDA has had guidance out there for more than 5 years that argues that the CBD is not legal to be sold as a dietary supplement or as a food and beverage additive. Meanwhile, as your listeners know, CBD is being sold in every state. You can get it nearly everywhere, and there are thousands of products in the marketplace that are unregulated. Now, many of the products are great. Our members of our roundtable take special care to make sure that they are properly manufactured, with good manufacturing practices and truth in labeling. But there is a minority of products out there that are not following the rules. And so, what HR 8179 would do is it would create a legal regulatory pathway for the sale of hemp-derived CBD as a dietary supplement. That will do two important things. Number one, it will remove this cloud over the industry. And we think folks like Target and Walmart and other places that have been hesitant to sell the products will be willing to sell. We'll see a lot of investment come into the industry. We'll see prices go up and farmers be able to sell their products, their crops for reasonable prices. At the same time, it will require CBD manufacturers to follow all of the relevant FDA rules for dietary supplements. So they're going to have good manufacturing practices. They're going to have truth in labeling. They're going to have to report adverse effects. They're going to have to do safety studies. And with all of this, we're going to have safer products on the marketplace, and we're going to be helping hemp farmers. So we really think that 8179 is not a cure-all, but it will play a major role in helping restore and stabilize the hemp market.
And I understand that many folks, especially sort of in the grassroots world, knowing that the hemp industry was in so many ways, of course, built on the backs of cottage industry and small businesses. And the idea comes to mind, why does hemp extract or CBD have to go through all of these steps to be able to be introduced into commerce? And it's such a frustrating conversation to have, because we're just fighting to be held to the same standards that other dietary supplements and new dietary ingredients are held to. If they're not exempt from those requirements based on the time obligations within the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, then in our developed country here, there are safety and quality standards in order to be able to be introduced into commerce, whether it's even for animal ingestion and certainly for human ingestion. So really what we're asking in this bill is to please allow us to be held to the same standards. Please allow us to sell this dietary ingredient as a dietary supplement and release us from the shackles of this uncertainty and lack of clarity. And as you well know, Commissioner Stephen Hahn said back in February, it's a fool's game to even try to put this genie back in the bottle. That's a paraphrase of his quote, but certainly fool's game came right out of his mouth. So this is a fantastic development. And as we know, also oftentimes standalone bills don't have a whole lot of traction. So I know that we're hoping to gain tremendous traction here, and that we'll be going on a social media and co-sponsoring campaign very quickly to get folks to urge their representatives to sign on to this bill so that we can turn it into something meaningful together as a coalition. Another thing that is going on with the FDA, of course, is that they put draft guidance before the White House Office of Management and Budget, which is being debated right now. And there's so much uncertainty because none of that has been released to the public. And I know that the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and you personally have been involved in these discussions. Is there anything that we can share with our listeners as to what's going on at the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget?
Sure. No, I had a formal meeting with the Office of Management and Budget, which included about 12, 13 different agencies, including FDA, including HHS. But I think my more important discussions are informal with White House officials, with the congressional staff who are in touch with the White House. And from what I understand, there's a real battle going on behind the scenes. There are, unfortunately, some folks that want to have the status quo and just kick the can forward and to make this guidance much ado about nothing. But there are people working on our behalf behind the scenes trying to fight for some guidance and enforcement policy that will provide some relief for the industry. One idea would be having formal enforcement discretion, saying that if you play by the FDA rules and you follow all these good manufacturing practices, you can sell your products without fear that the FDA is going to intervene or do an enforcement action. And so, while that's not as strong as a bill that clarifies it, a law that clarifies it, it certainly would be a major step forward and hopefully would really help stabilize the industry. So we're going to continue with our back behind the scenes lobbying and hopeful that the forces of good rise up. But the fact is the permanent solution, which will fix everything, is 8179. And that's why we want to encourage you, if you're listening and you care about this issue, go to our website, hempsupporter.com. We set up an email so that you can email directly your member of Congress. You can ask him or her to be a co-sponsor of 8179. If we have enough co-sponsors, then we'll have the kind of momentum that will allow this bill to be added on to a must-pass piece of legislation before the end of the year. And so to do that, we need to get all you out there involved. Please email your congressman, and we've made it really easy at hempsupporter.com.
So fantastic, and really understanding that this bill will not only allow more products on the shelves in these, as you say, the large retailers who are standoffish because of this FDA position statement or FDA guidance, but it will also allow for safer, high quality, compliant products on the shelf. It's really such a crapshoot, for lack of a more descriptive term, for an uninformed consumer who knows that they want to try these products, that these products may improve their overall general wellness, the quality of their life, but they are met with several different brands on a shelf having no idea what is really the quality or safety of what's inside that bottle, unless, of course, it has a U.S. Hemp Authority seal. Thank goodness for the U.S. Hemp Authority being a barometer to be able to tell with a consumer-facing seal, this product has met safety standards. This product is compliant with standards that would allow it to be on a shelf. And of course, the base compliance for U.S. Hemp Authority certification is to be compliant with good current good manufacturing practices with the Code of Federal Regulations. So that's really the only thing, and thank goodness for it, that consumers have right now. And HR 8179 is going to really help that. And I think also really help bring forth that U.S. Hemp Authority, the value of that seal as we move forward, educating consumers and regulators and lawmakers on what it means and how helpful it is. Additionally, affecting the hemp extract industry, of course, is the new DEA interim final rule that was published, a bit blindsided. Let's talk about how that DEA interim final rule affects most significantly the hemp extract industry. And actually, before you answer that, Jonathan, I just can't help but say, as I say the word significant, that as usual, the Drug Enforcement Administration has put forth sort of an arbitrary rule stating that it's not a significant regulatory action. Well, we certainly beg to differ. This is a significant regulatory action that has taken place. And of course, we believe against the spirit and intent of the Farm Bill. So please, let's tell the listeners a little bit about the DEA IFR, the interim final rule.
Well, I think your listeners are well aware of our history with the DEA. It goes back 3 decades, at least, maybe even more. But the DEA has always been the main antagonist of the hemp industry. And I'm sure, Joy, you could speak for hours on the history here. But that history was supposed to end on December 20th, 2018, when Donald Trump signed the 2018 Farm Bill. That declared that the era of prohibition on hemp was over. The regulation of hemp was designated to go to the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, and taken away from the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration. But we've seen, unfortunately, in recent months, the DEA lift its nose under the hemp tent. Several months ago, we learned that the interim final rule for the USDA, which has been quite controversial, was unduly influenced by the DEA, that many of the restrictions that we're fighting right now were imposed on the USDA by the DEA. But now, as you're talking about, this new interim final rule would, if taken to its full extent, would cause tremendous disruption and would recriminalize many basic hemp extract activities. And there's several parts of it, but I think the main thing here is the designation that in-process hemp extract. So it's not the hemp that's farmed. It's not the final products, but it's the hemp extract that is in the process of getting from one place to another. That they want to argue that if it's test above 0.3% THC, that it is a controlled substance. Now, everybody knows, and Congress knew when it passed the Farm Bill, that due to nature, due to processes, that measurement is going to be higher than 0.3% THC at parts of this chain. It needs to be remediated. It needs to be taken down before it is sold as a product to consumers, but that's the nature of the product. And so the DEA coming in and saying that at any time they could conceivably come in and arrest people and charge them with a violation of a Schedule 1 akin to trafficking in heroin. You could imagine jail sentences and the like. That is quite scary. Now the DEA has said, now wait a minute, we're that's not our priority, and we're focused on fentanyl and methamphetamines. But being out there is causing great anxiety and concern in the industry, and it's something that we are addressing on 3 different levels. We're going to be filing our formal comments. We're going to be looking at legislation, and we're going to be exploring the idea of litigation if necessary.
Are you looking for a career change? I'm Carson Humiston, the founder of Angst, the cannabis industry's largest hiring platform. I'm so excited because on October 21st and 22nd, we are hosting the cannabis industry's first virtual hiring event. It's 2 days of great speakers, networking, and most importantly, jobs. We have over 50 cannabis companies all across the US hiring for more than 500 positions. This is the place to go to find your next job in the cannabis industry. To sign up, visit Vanks.com.
You know, it cannot be overstated, as you say, that the DEA was to be formally out of the hemp business, I suppose technically on January 1, 2019, right? And when the Farm Bill was enacted. And we know that in the Farm Bill, which of course 33 pages or so affected hemp, but the Farm Bill itself was over 1,000 pages. And in those 1,000 pages, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration was not mentioned a single time. Yet the USDA, which has, admitted, Secretary Perdue has said that the DEA really came in and sort of bullied their way. That's my words, not his, but interfered and influenced those rules. Those 43 pages of USDA rules mentioned the DEA 42 times when the 1,000+ page Farm Bill doesn't mention the DEA one time. So to say that the DEA is supposed to be out of the hemp business would be an understatement. And in fact, as you well know, in May of 2019, the USDA's general counsel offered up a legal opinion as to the impact of the Farm Bill on hemp and the USDA's obligation, so on and so forth, and offered in footnotes 8 and 9 of this very brilliant in favor of the hemp industry and really showing the command of the complexities of everything involved legal opinion, stated, because as we know, the tetrahydrocannabinols, the definition for both marijuana and tetrahydrocannabinols were amended as part of the Farm Bill. And the USDA general counsel says right in his own legal opinion that the Controlled Substances Act certainly includes a definition of tetrahydrocannabinols, which has been amended, and notwithstanding the presence of that definition in the current regulations, he says that he is of the opinion that THC, or delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, any tetrahydrocannabinol in hemp, is excluded from THC as a Schedule I controlled substance under the Controlled Substances Act by virtue of the 2018 Farm Bill amendments. And the same is true with hemp extract. So we know what the intent and spirit of the bill is. We know how it's been interpreted by the USDA, and we certainly know how the experts and the U.S. Hemp Roundtable interprets those amendments. So it's scary to know that it isn't just the personal freedom being lost, it's asset forfeiture. That has always been a tremendous incentive for coming against or prosecuting folks who are violating the Controlled Substances Act. So it is, of course, no guarantee or comfort to us that they say they won't be enforcing it. Would actually put folks who are in the business of handling that in-process or work-in-process hemp material to then register as a business, who is working with controlled substances if this DEA IFR were to go through as it stands. We're in a public comment period and just so glad to be and proud to be a part of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable as we take that on. It just would have a tremendous effect. And really, the FDA itself treats THC as a contaminant, like it would a pesticide or a heavy metal or a residual solvent. And there are ways that we deal with contaminants that are part of the in-process nature of products that are made for human consumption or animal consumption, and we can treat our excess THC in that very same way. As we wrap up sort of the hemp extract piece of our interview here and move into what affects really all of the hemp industry, oilseed fiber and hemp extract, and that's the USDA IFR, let's talk for a minute about California. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable, and with a wonderful coalition of folks from California, took again a leadership role working on AB 2028. We've got some issues in California. Please tell us about that and how we've ended up and what our chances are, Jonathan.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, the hemp industry was really alarmed when the California Department of Public Health came out and argued that it was illegal to sell CBD as a dietary supplement or as a food and beverage additive. Immediately or soon thereafter, legislation was introduced to reverse that and to clarify that CBD could be sold as a dietary supplement food additive. It was then known as AB 228. It was sponsored by Representative Cecilia Aguilar-Curry, and it passed through the House, the Assembly, 3 committees in the Assembly unanimously, the Assembly 4 unanimously, 2 committees in the Senate unanimously, and then mysteriously died in a committee in the Senate at the end of last year. So we picked it up again this year. Things got really slowed down because of COVID and of the distractions of forest fires and everything else going in California. But a few weeks ago, we're finally able to reach an agreement with the governor's office that wasn't perfect. We didn't get everything we wanted, but fundamentally would lift this attack on hemp and CBD and would allow for the retail sale of CBD with a lot of good regulatory protections that ensure that the products have been tested and that they're safe for human consumption. Unfortunately, the compromise of the governor came so late in the process that we ran out of time during the session. And we were hopeful in the last few days we would be able to get it passed. It was going to be amended to AB 2028, but unfortunately we ran out of time. The good news is there is a broad consensus in the legislature, and that if there is a special session, probably not going to happen, but if there is one, we hope to be part of that, but more likely, the beginning of next year, it will be reintroduced. It's been vetted, and again, as you mentioned, a broad coalition of California hemp farmers and industry activists are supporting it, and we've got the governor's support. We've got so much of the legislator's support. So hopefully, we will see that, and that by the springtime of next year, we hope to have everything resolved favorably, and this cloud of what the Department of Public Health created would be lifted.
Some seriously heroic efforts there throughout that session, and particularly the last couple of weeks of the session there. Again, just very grateful as someone who has been working towards the liberation of this plant for so long, for the Roundtable. It's truly heroic efforts. And of course, the work of our coalition partners. We certainly cannot do it alone. Now let's move on to the USDA's interim final rule, which has just reopened their public comment period. And just to frame this up for a moment, for the listeners may or may not realize that, of course, the 2014 Farm Bill brought forth our agricultural pilot programs. That was a defined term within the hemp amendments of the 2014 Farm Bill, and that was to study the growth, cultivation, and marketing of hemp. And it's under those agricultural pilot programs that multiple states began to put forth legislation authorizing their departments of ag to promulgate or create rules for these ag pilot programs, and farmers started to grow hemp, and the crop reemerged from just a couple of thousand acres to probably around 250,000 acres last year under those programs, which have less stringent rules in many ways and in multiple states than the rules promulgated by the USDA for the commercial crop. So the 2018 Farm Bill advanced the reemergence and reintroduction of the versatile, valuable hemp crop from agricultural pilot programs to straight up agricultural commodity, completely removed from the Controlled Substances Act, reclaimed its place in the broad light of day with all of America's other agricultural commodities. And the USDA was then tasked with creating rules for this program, and for states that want to be the primary regulatory authority to create their own rules for approval by the USDA. So we've got some issues with that interim final rule, sir. Lay it on us, if you would.
Yeah, well, as we discussed earlier, when we were talking about the DEA, we learned a few months ago that when this interim final rule, IFR, was originally came out, that the DEA had stuck its nose under the tent and had really pressured the interagency group that created this rule to impose a lot of restrictions on hemp farming and hemp processing and hemp transportation that wound its way up into this IFR. We've seen that in the form of the requirement that testing only would be able to be made through DEA registered labs, and there are a limited number of those. If that were the case, there would be huge lineups and delays in terms of getting products tested. It manifested itself in terms of setting a level of negligence at 0.5% THC. So if the farmer had a crop tested at 0.5% THC, he could be criminally liable, or she could be criminally liable. Excuse me. But again, negligence is not an arbitrary number, and if you're going to use any number, you should probably start at 1.0% THC, where intoxication begins. And additionally, the IFR said you had to destroy any non-compliant hemp, and the Farm Bill was very clear that it didn't use the word destroy, it used the word disposal. And there are ways of disposing uncompliant hemp, whether it's through feedstock or fuel or something else on the farm that again would be much greater remediation for farmers. And so all of these different issues, some of them have been temporarily resolved. For example, the USDA said we were going to temporarily delay the requirement that it has to be a DEA registered lab. But now that they've reopened the comments period, it's time to ask them to make that permanent and to ask them to let's get the DEA out of this. Let's let farmers farm. Let's not make the average hemp farmer a suspected criminal just by joining up as a hemp farmer. And let's focus on the science and the technical ability for farmers to farm. So what we've done, again, is a roundtable. If you go to hempsupporter.com, you'll be able to click a few buttons and then be able to send a comment directly into the regulations.gov portal where the DEA and the USDA are reading these comments. So we encourage you to come to hempsupporter.com to make your comments, because again, the roundtable has made its comments, and that's important. But we want them to get thousands of comments. We want them to hear from everyone across the country that the DEA has got to be out of this business, and let's make this, as we go from an interim final rule to a final rule, let's use common sense, let's use science, and let's make it easier for hemp farmers to farm as opposed to making it much more difficult that the original IFR signified.
So important. And that hempsupporter.com, what a power tool that is to allow for voices to be heard and to really empower people to understand that despite all we may think, see, or feel on the news and feel about it, we live in a country where the people actually lead. And when the people lead, the leaders follow. And our system was built to engage in the process. And it's really a matter of empowering oneself with the knowledge of how to engage, and then engaging and watching change be created. And so it's just, again, such a pleasure and a thrill and an honor for me to be able to serve the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and the tremendous work that it's doing and the empowering work that it's doing for citizens, for farmers, for students, for everybody. Of course, the stakeholders, but for every citizen who wants to engage in the process, we have a platform and a way for them to do that in a way that really, truly affects change. A couple other things on that USDA IFR, of course, is this idea of just testing the hemp floral material for THC, as opposed to what the statutory language says, which is basically the testing, this is a whole plant situation. Why would we not homogenize the plant and get an even mix here of the grain, the fiber, and the floral material, as opposed to just testing the floral material, which of course is what's mandated in the current version of the IFR. And then of course this sample to harvest 15-day window is just an impossibility, clearly setting farmers up for failure. And I know it is not the USDA's intent to set a farmer up for failure. They want to set farmers up for success. And so I'm really feeling hopeful about this. And finally, and just taking this opportunity, as I often do, to educate, when we talk about, as you hit the nail on the head, that Farm Bill said dispose of the non-compliant hemp, not destroy it. And I just rail on this idea of pyrolysis, which the USDA has an entire portion of its website dedicated to the research that it is doing on biomass pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is a game changer. It's the heating of an organic material, such as hemp stalk or hemp biomass, in the absence of oxygen. And because no oxygen is present, the material doesn't combust, but the chemical compounds, cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, sugars that make up the material thermally decompose into combustible gases and charcoal that create 100% pure biofuel, diesel, gasoline, plastic resins, biochar, carbon block, tremendously valuable nanotubes that are otherwise created by hand and are cost prohibitive even for research and development. So we're taking essentially the world's most valuable cellulose and telling farmers that the best they can do with hemp that's above 0.3% THC, an arbitrary non-scientific number, is to essentially destroy it. Now, I appreciate that the USDA did come up with some amendments and said, well, you can dispose of it this way. You can bury it. You can burn it. You can compost it. And while we so appreciate those little tiny lines in the sand that have moved, we need to use it. We need to add value. We need to create the supply chain for these incredibly valuable industries and tremendously in need industries, fuel, air and space, so on and so forth, that hemp can serve and can absolutely serve with hemp that tests above 0.3% THC. And to wrap up here, time goes by so quickly. Boy, are we doing a lot of work, Jonathan, under your tremendous leadership at the Roundtable. I wanted to take a minute to talk about the U.S. Hemp Roundtable's Minority Empowerment Committee. I am very proud to be the vice president of our federal lobbying committee, and boy, is my heart healed for the work we're doing with the Minority Empowerment Committee. Could you tell us a bit about that, Jonathan?
Yeah, we as a hemp industry have a very colored past when it comes to race relations. The hemp was a crop that was farmed on the backs of slaves, and in some places like here in Kentucky, hemp was used to justify slavery, and now we've really come up with a new awakening as a society in the last several months, and that I think we're all in our industry struggling to figure out ways to promote equity and fairness and opportunity for people of color, and so we set up a minority empowerment committee as a way to try to do something as an industry. We have set up a mission statement already and published that, where we go through our priorities. And we are now in the process of setting up stakeholder meetings with groups in the space to help us refine that mission statement into work in action. I'm a big believer that I get tired of organizations that take these opportunities to tweet or send out a Facebook post and say that they're supportive and then don't do anything. So we're doing the hard work right now to try to really take steps to empower farmers and minority business people, and clean up our own act, and to ensure that our roundtable, as well as our members, are promoting diversity and equity within their own ranks. So we're at the beginning. We haven't solved anything yet, but we're asking the right questions, and I hope that over the course of the next months and years that we'll be able to be a good example for the rest of the industry.
And that's what inspires me so much is, of course, the commitment. Again, as you say, a tweet, a Band-Aid, a pretty sticker. No, we are committed. This is not a surface-only endeavor. Our sleeves are rolled up. We are so blessed to have the sub-leadership and true leadership, I would say. It's the committees, of course, are always under our main leadership, but we've got Miss Amber Littlejohn of the the Minority Cannabis Business Association, a renowned attorney, and of course has been a rock star in the dietary supplement world as well, and so is well known throughout the dietary supplement community. But she is amazing, and I feel so blessed to have her leadership within that committee as well to guide us through really getting some teeth here and making meaningful change, and doing it in a way that can be embraced as we all evolve together to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. So thank you so much, Jonathan. I know that the Minority Empowerment Committee was born also under your leadership. I think I was one of the first people that you contacted about birthing it into the world, and that was just a very happy day, and it brings me a lot of joy and purpose to serve on that committee. Well, Jonathan, in closing here, is there anything that you want to make sure you say that we haven't said already besides go to hempsupporter.com? And
you know me too well.
Say it, brother.
That's how again, if any of your listeners want to do something, and go to hempsupporter.com, because we make it easy for you to get in touch with your Congress person, whether it's HR 8179, whether it's the Safe Banking Act, whether it's trying to make sure our troops have access to CBD. We're now making it easy for you to make comments on the interim final rules for both the DEA and the USDA. But if you're not on our hemp supporter list, it's free. You just give us your name, email, your zip code, so we know who your congressperson is, and we can line you up to get you active. But we now are involving over 50,000 people across the country. I'd like to get that to a couple 100,000, because that's we've already made a difference. But the more folks we have united, the stronger our voice is going to be.
So fantastic. What a thing that's been created here with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Always wonderful to have you, Jonathan. We'll have you back on again, and thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, and for everything you do.